And so Galen Miller, just as a little bit of a background, I'm going to have you introduce yourself. But we met when the company that I worked for, Revolution Resources, purchased an asset that he was working from Gastar called West Edmond Hunton Lime Unit. We call it WEHLU. And anyway, I just remember the first time I walked in and I saw Galen and I was like, dude, this is my kind of geologist. I knew right away, and we were able to like kind of hit it off. And, I just want to give you a chance to kind of introduce yourself and we'll get going from there. Thank you for coming on the show.
Hey, my pleasure. Yeah. So, Galen Miller, geologist, I guess with I don't know most people, but, I live here in Norman. So naturally I went to OU. I worked for the Oklahoma Geological Survey for like 6 years. So doing surface mapping. So I mapped most of the western part of Oklahoma on the surface. Then I was on a field trip. We were taking Devin on a field trip, and I guess they liked the field trip enough that they had me come talk to them. And so that's how I ended up actually in the oil field. Starting out at Devon, I ended up on the first Cana team, right?
Oh,
They
okay.
had drilled like one Cana well at that point when I came on board, and they were still trying to do the research. So I was doing drilling Woodford wells out in Cana. Then they decided I needed to broaden my horizons and had me start working West Texas. So I started drilling some of the first Third Bone Spring wells with a geologist named John Drake. So we started doing that.
Was it more of an operations role, or were you like A&D, or the actual exploration part? Were you doing the actual drilling?
It was more, I guess. I wasn't picking where we were gonna drill, but I was in charge of like actually getting the well drilled, getting the drilling plan ready.
To make the geoprog,
Yeah,
engineers. Okay.
yeah, and the geoprog and all that, getting all that ready, and then actually steering the wells. And there's funny stories about the whole process out in Third Bone Spring that we could probably get to at another day. Then I don't know. I thought Devon was just too big or something. I don't know. So I left and went to a smaller company called Blake Production.
Blake.
Yeah,
I actually
Blake
share the
Vernon.
same sentiment about bigger companies. I just right now coming out from what I just did, I'm applying for them, but it just doesn't click with me. So,
Right. Yeah. It's just, I don't know. Something didn't
many
click
people,
with
man.
me with the giant company. So I went to Blake Production for a while, and then Gastar. Blake Production owns the East Tennessee unit, and he's got a few other plays going on now.
Did you do the Oswego with them?
To the
Okay.
Oswego, yeah. We
Okay.
drilled some Oswego wells, and there's another story there why they're at that funny angle that they're at.
Yeah, I would like to hear that. Oswego is the one that I've kind of messed with a little bit. I've put a few of them in the ground. I've done recompletes in, watered out Woodford wells, where we just mill casing or, I just go and set a plug and perf it. The Oswego is one of the ones that I've really kind of taken an interest in, and the stuff in Kingfisher. I guess that's what you were all doing.
Yeah, in the East Tennessee unit, yeah, what we mapped or what I mapped is the Oswego Sea develops a big porosity streak through it, and those wells were pretty good. They were kind of tight about the actual production, which was kind of strange.
Were they unitized or anything like that? Because I remember seeing some weird stuff where like it was in the units, like the real production is averaged out. Right.
Right. So, yeah, so it was all unitized. And then he sold the Mississippi rights to the East Tennessee units to another company and just made a gazillion off of that when everyone was all about the Mississippian. And then at that point, Gastar approached me. And and that's how I ended up working the WEHLU. Gastar hired me to work the WEHLU, and then they were starting to expand. They had another deal with Husky Ventures out in the stack, where they were, Husky was drilling the Hunton out there in the stack, and then we ended up buying Husky out. And, management at Gastar was all about the buzzwords for the stock market. And one of the
Not
issues,
the actual perfect producing asset that you guys had just south of that, right?
Right, yeah.
I mean, I hate that we don't have it. I would have never sold that damn thing. Are you kidding me?
Oh, it's WEHLU is the unit that gives and keeps on giving. The whole history of WEHLU. The guy found it supposedly using dowsing rods.
He did.
And Oh, what was his name? Bukowski or something like
Yes,
that?
I was drawing a blank. I bet you saw my eyes gazing into the distance. I couldn't remember who it is, but that's who he did it. That's exactly the name, Gutowski or something like.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, yeah, so that was during World War II, and
I think he was 42 when he did it, if I remember correctly. It wasn't 40 or 41. I think he was 42 when when they drilled the first one.
yeah, and so once that came on board, it was during World War II, so it's considered a military asset. So they blew the gas cap off to get
Yeah.
to the oil. The gas wasn't valuable then. That's probably caused some of the challenges that we had, drilling it, them having blown all the pressure off of it. But,
Yeah.
it's still, even when we had it and then when you guys had it, there was still like so much oil in there. It was unbelievable.
No, it never ceased to amaze me. It had the reserves that were left, and it's really sparked my interest to future stuff because I listen, this thing was flooded with millions of barrels of water. One of
Right.
the favorite things that I did was we had all that old data, and one thing I did want to say really quick. I've done a bunch of A&D. I've absorbed entire companies basically by myself in terms of the geo side. Starting back with Aubrey, these big things where you get these big databases and stuff. I'm just going
Right.
to tell you straight up. Another reason I knew you were the type of geologist I would like is because your Petra project was so good.
Well,
No, it
thank
was
you.
really nice to have like a good data set to come and be able to work with. It doesn't work like that all the time. And especially from big companies, when we took Jones over, I mean, that was a reverse merger. So it was everything, the trash, So, anyways, I was just going to say that was a nice little transition. And you had I'm going to tell you another thing. You had one of the best tips that like saved us kind of pretty early on when you were the one that told me to go and spot acid when we get stuck, when we get torque stuck.
Yeah.
And so anyway, hey, I just wanted to say thank you, and it was really fortunate to get to meet you. So if you want to go and really quick, what I was saying is that we had all this old data that you guys gave us, and I was able to piece together everything that happened. They did that helium thing down south, they did water flooding in the Chimney Hill, and all these different experiments. And
Right.
so I'd made this one like kind of master map that captured all of it, like which wells they injected into and stuff. And the point of this is so much was done to that field, blowing down the gas cap, producing, hundreds, millions of barrels and these sorts of things. And yet we can go in there and there's a lake, the Deer Lakes 1-1 that's still making 80 barrels a day flat. You know what I mean? I've never seen
Right.
anything like that in my life.
Right.
So anyhow,
Yeah, some of the challenges out there, we were doing an upper Hunton well, and there was some challenges with Gas Star. They hired a drilling engineer who thought he knew everything, and he decided he wanted to drill with oil-based mud, and then was shocked when all the oil-based mud disappeared. Couple $100,000 down the toilet.
and I hope you fired him.
Yeah, eventually, yeah. And then we were having losses with the mud on one well, and so they started shoving cottonseed holes down the well to try and plug it up. And then a couple days later, a mile to the east, that well started producing cottonseed holes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
No,
mean, just that porous. I mean, it was crazy.
the way the CEO, who's a reservoir engineer, described it to me was like it was just a hallway. There wasn't anything in the way. Like we're just pulling fluid from a hallway. And there's just so many beautiful things about that asset. Now, it sounds like, did you guys try to fight the lost circulation while you were drilling?
They tried. I mean, with like the
We
cottonseed and yeah,
worked, and here's the
right,
other thing is that it was moving the cuttings out. Like if we had circulation, we hated it because like would start getting torquey. We weren't able to move the cuttings out. All we
right.
knew is that we could keep it topped off just enough to send a pulse down and get
Uh-huh.
directional out of it. Here's the other thing. I'm sure y'all had this too, where the bit just drops. You can't hold tool face. You're
Right,
literally, in my opinion, we were just drilling through basically a fill of a karst. So I think that whole
right,
kind of Chimney Hill area was really a big major cavern system that made the Chimney Hill in that better area better because that was the deeper part of the cavern. That was subsequently filled in from other erosion. And so really, I think the boat arc at WEHLU is really a karst environment. That
right,
thin, that the really fine grain kind of carbonate sands and stuff that we would see, that's all cave fill. And again, the one main area, the Chimney Hill area, was really that was just the lower reaches of the cave, in my personal opinion. If you look around like some of
Right.
the wells there, you can see you've got your, the middle Hunton there, and you can
Right.
actually see, divots where there was like a collapse or something from just the top of the, the boat arc or whatever. So,
Right. Yeah, that's what we're always trying to explain to management, and they could never grasp some of the concepts of that.
people that have drilled in a cave system, if you're really looking at it, especially sideways.
Right. I mean, and then there are other examples like it's like the Kimberley Reef off of
Australia.
Australia that it gets exhumed every day with the tides, and there's channels through it. I always thought that was a good analogy of what was going on in the Hunting at that time, because there's that big channel that goes down through the center
Yep.
that trends east west, and I
Yep.
always thought maybe that was kind of analogous to what was going on at the Hunting during depositional times.
Yes.
Maybe there's these kind of channels through there, but definitely some karsting going on, and uh, it occurred to me, I don't know how you do it, but man, if you could put some horizontals under Lake Hefner.
We definitely spitballed that, and actually Overholster also.
Yeah.
Somebody had messed around with it a few years back. I want to say 10 or more, and people were kind of against it. But yeah, you're absolutely.
We always joked about bringing a drilling barge up from Louisiana and putting it on the lake.
Why not? I'm telling you that it would work.
Yeah. But
That's
I
one of
mean,
the
that
spots.
seems, yeah, I mean, that seems untapped. I don't know how much of it's leaked out from under there into WEHLU, but
I think you do kind of cross the Nemaha pretty close to the unit boundary, though. I do think that there's a major step change that happens. I think you kind of have to, but the lake is still on the west side of the Nemaha, so we're fair game.
yeah, I think they put 74/Portland is right on the Nemaha.
Yes, it is.
So I don't know if it's just luck that they did that. Well, it probably is just luck that they did that, but yeah, it seems like the Nemaha just goes right up 77/Portland or 74/Portland, whatever
Yeah,
that highway
74
is.
Hefner Parkway.
Yeah, Hefner Raceway, as some people call it.
Indeed. But yeah, I
And
definitely think there's some pretty good stuff under the lake. I don't know that anybody will ever get it, but
Yeah.
we did do some cool stuff though. We did rig up at the airport, and we drilled 4 from there, and one of them went directly under my house. So that
Really?
was kind of cool. Yeah.
Well,
Directly
and
under my house. Like we barely missed it. And the plan was actually a little bit to the east, but you know how it would get down there. We
right.
started kind of trending, and I'd already been kind of bugging the engineers. I'm like, listen, I'm not asking you, but just so you know, here's my house. So anyway, we actually kind of naturally started drifting, and we ended up like where we literally hit the corner underneath my son's bedroom. And
Wow.
yeah, so that's got to be a pretty rare one, actually. I don't know how many geologists have drilled a well that they've actually had ownership under their own home from an
Yeah, that's
airport.
pretty cool
So
too. Yeah, and I don't know if Galardia knows that they have wells under Galardia now. Because we
oh yeah.
put 2 under Galardia, and I think you guys put a couple more under there, didn't you?
Yeah, we did them first, and they were more, yeah, we did one of them. Yeah, 1 or 2 of them did go to the south, but then we also went to the north. But that well was flaring, out there around Christmas time for about 2 months. It had a big old flare. Those were really good wells.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
will tell you about that one though. That one was one of the toughest. That this is a good time to talk about that, because that was one of the ones that we actually did have to sidetrack the landing, because we were coming down, and you know what you had to do. You didn't want to lose. You probably would lose a little circulation, but you were going to have the Woodford over you. You're going to go into this depleted zone, and we needed to get landed quick and set 7.
Right.
Well, we were coming down, and we have a nice normal section. We hit the Woodford. It's not very thick here. And
Right.
we start coming into the Hunton, but sure enough, dude, the hot gamma starts coming back. And so, oh crap, we go just a little bit, and it's the Woodford. And we didn't get stuck. We didn't have anything. So I've hit it once, and now I'm in the first repeat section, right?
Right.
So we come back, we sidetrack and come around. And so we know what to expect. We've gone through the first one. We hit the second Woodford, and then the Hunton, and maybe 10 feet in, here comes 500 gamma ray again, you know? And so we're kind of like, oh my gosh, like, what are we going to do? Long and the short, I literally did. I had to tell the drillers to just close their eyes and drill, and that it was going to be okay. And sure enough, we had like a little 1 foot piece of Woodford that we hit again, and we were back in the hunt and we were able to set casing. But that's kind of flower structure ish. You know what I mean? That's the third tier of the fault. And I think it was in an east-west direction. This was one of the ones coming out going to the north. And
Right.
sure enough, dude, that would have been the third time we hit it. And technically we kind of did, but it was, you know, a foot thick. It didn't become a problem for us or anything like that, but scared the
Right.
shit out of me.
Well, it freaks those drillers out too, because they call you and they're like, "What the hell are you thinking? What's going on here? What are we getting into?"
Yep.
And you got to just, like you say, make them close their eyes and just drill. It's like, trust me, I got this. We've mapped it. There's so many data points out there that,
Yeah. That was a big difference. Having those 40-acre offsets really helped.
yeah, it was a major help. At that point, with all that well data, I'm sure seismic would have been nice, but it would have been a nightmare to run seismic through there.
It was doable. Honestly, I tried. I know how much it would have cost. We wouldn't have had any problems. We have the streets. I have an old friend that did it in LA. Getting him to run down freaking MacArthur and Rockwell, I don't think would have been that big of a deal at midnight. No, it was feasible. And I can tell you right now, it would have opened up a lot more reserves because you would have seen the rest of the Chimney Hill cave system, which
Right,
it was just guessing otherwise, right?
right.
So no, I tried, but we didn't do it.
That would have been interesting to see.
I
Just
was
to see
actually
that.
pitching it on other vertical prospects. I mean, if you just think about what we're seeing, there's Will Cox and every damn thing else underneath there,
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
It was a cool play for sure. I mean, especially being this close to town. I mean, our office was on Northwest Expressway, which was almost in WEHLU at that point. The
yep.
Charleston's on Northwest Expressway is actually in WEHLU, so we'd
Yep.
go eat lunch in WEHLU sometimes.
It really was the best asset for that. I could just go to the rig, and
Yeah,
Woodlogger would just drop by my house and drop samples.
right.
It was pretty
Uh,
good.
it was awesome. And that just the whole history of WEHLU has always fascinated me. The whole he finds it with dowsing rods supposedly, and then it's such a big asset during World War II. It kind of makes you proud that you're working on something like that. That helped the country
The
during those
legacy and the
times.
history of it.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I don't know that all. I guess I would assume all fields are documented like that, but it seems like the story of WEHLU just really stuck with me.
It is one of the special ones, I would say. Like, there's
Yeah,
something interesting about it. There's something different about, just a big bump, even like an El Dorado, even. Like, this is more interesting to that. It has more of a compelling story. I mean, it was literally producing jet fuel and oil for the war. There's something special about WEHLU. And I would say it's kind of different than most any other reservoir in terms of its level of permeability and porosity. I mean, it's got to be one of the best reservoirs in the continental US, honestly, if you're to just look at the characteristics of it.
yeah, I think because of the karsting that's in there, this is one of those examples where the layperson thinks of that we're tapping into a giant swimming pool.
Right.
This is one where, because of the karsting, at sometimes we probably were tapping into a giant swimming pool,
Pretty much.
because I feel like, some of that karsting was just full of oil,
Yeah.
and
No, I think it was all saturated, and I bet you that the old schoolers had bit drop. And they'd
yeah,
come in, they'd get bit drop, and they hit into the cavern. So
right. Yeah, that would be, that would have been an exciting time back then to drill that up,
I mean, all of these major early discoveries, like most of us will never experience anything like that.
Right,
Like gushers and, giant 30,000 acre oil fields. Now
right,
we're just turning it into a factory where, more or less it's just put sticks across a grid pattern. And
right.
while it's significant and fun and we get to take part in the energy and development of our country, it's not, it's got to be different than what it was like for these old schoolers, when they actually hit and it came shooting out of the ground.
Yeah, we'll never see anything like what is it, the Wild Mary Sudic well that
Yep.
supposedly when it blew out, apparently they say oil was blown all the way south to Norman. we'll never see anything like that. And then EPA and everyone else would be up in arms if something like that happened. But
Oh yeah, well, and let's be real. If we had a real blowout, people get hurt and stuff. Like, we'll never see that kind of thing in a positive light, certainly. But
right,
boy, that would have been cool, wouldn't it have been?
to see that, yes, that
Woo!
would have been awesome.
That's the kind of stuff I daydream about, honestly. Just like what it would have been like to be the dude that did it too. Like your idea, your concept. Oh well, this is a good talk, man. What are you working on these days?
Well, we're part of Seaside Energy with Josh McCullum of Faro Energy and Casey Hayes of Faro Energy.
Oh, great! I know Josh really well.
Uh-huh. And so basically we were just kind of doing a consulting. We got into this. A lot of people were buying production. A lot of people that didn't know much about the oil field, they were buying production and then wondering why their production was cratering. So we kind of found this little niche, helping these people go in, look at their field, look at the production they bought, and try and find some uphole potential for them. They can recomplete these wells. It's kind of fallen off a little bit, so we're interested, getting the word out there to try and get back into this. It's a
Great.
lot of vertical wells, vertical production, not really much horizontal production as far as that goes. But it looks like, of course, the people that we consulted for some reason don't really want to share their production data. After we give them our recommendation, we don't hear from them. But one of them's a little vocal on Facebook, and if you believe his Facebook posts, everything's going great.
Okay.
I don't know how much of that is him trying to milk investors in, also, but
right.
Uh,
Boy, I've heard of some real interesting things people have come up with in the past. They've had some like Cleveland stuff up there in like Logan County not too long ago.
uh-huh.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, no, that's the whole purpose of the show, honestly, Galen, is to just get people like you on, talk about the business, talk about our shared experiences. And if you have a service company or something that you'd like to promote, by all means, feel free. I've actually decided to not take sponsors just for that. So I don't want to alienate anybody. I love all software. I love all the people that work in it. And this isn't going to be a place where I'm going to like hash about, geographics versus Petra or anything like that. So I want people like you to come on and talk about yourself and your product and what you're doing. And like for me, it's a nice chance too, because I'm doing something similar. I want to highlight the people on this channel, but hopefully be able to maybe garner some work too, and one of the things I'm really trying to get into is taking, say, some of these people here in Oklahoma who have non-operated working interest and overrides in these big horizontal wells, but may not completely understand exactly what's happening. So what I want to do is kind of identify these people, come in and re-steer their non-operated assets, run some analytics on it, and let them decide, how much to go into certain things and whether or not, if they want to operate themselves, I can also step in and manage that, provide the, the planning and the geo side of it. So like, I get it. Come on my show and talk about it, buddy.
Right. Yeah. So we at Seaside, we have the complete Petra suite and all Oklahoma data, well data, production data, log data, so we're good to work anywhere in Oklahoma. Of course, I've steered, I don't know how many wells, and Star Steer makes it so easy to steer wells. You can almost do it blindfolded. I actually steered a well when I was on a fishing trip in Canada one time. I had a well going and I didn't really trust anyone else to steer it. So I'm on my phone, looking at my phone while we're on the boat. The guide's like, "You see that island up there?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "You're going to lose cell coverage." And sure enough, we did. And I had to, like, a couple hours later, I was like, "Dude, you got to take me back to where I have cell coverage. I got to check." He took me back while they were cooking lunch on some other island. It was like the whole family. So we had like 4 guide boats.
Oh, okay. So you had the flexibility for somebody to kind of peel off.
Somebody could take me back to where I had cell coverage and check and make sure everything was going good, and it was. So,
well, and this is something
just a unique experience. He's like, you're going to lose cell coverage at that island right there, and sure enough, it went away. So,
well, the only thing I was going to say is I literally had this conversation with a company man that sat most of my wells for Revolution, and that's one of those things, Galen. If you're an operations guy, you can go on vacation, but you're not on vacation. You can
No.
never leave that behind. Like, it's too serious, it's too important, and you're probably like me. You do have trust issues.
Yeah. I mean, it was.
There's a few people that I could walk away and feel safe with, but even then, when you're an operations guy, you got to be plugged in unless it's not turning.
And even if you do turn it over to somebody, you're still kind of looking over their shoulder and double checking them,
100%.
Yeah, I mean, you could never really relax.
And especially not the kind of stuff that we're used to in Oklahoma. I'm
Right.
sure you can go down to the Eagleford or some of this other stuff and it's just a flat stick, but we already know with what we do and where we work that it's a lot of uppy downy. So,
Right, right,
it's not straightforward. You got to babysit these things. So,
right.
well,
So,
good, dude. I think we're getting pretty close here. You have anything you want to leave us with?
just if anyone out there needs some help with their wells, feel free to reach out to me or Josh McCollum. Or contact information's out there on LinkedIn if you want to hook up with us. We're out here. We're ready to help anybody who needs some help.
I love it. I'll make sure that I post your link to your website and your information with the video and on YouTube. So they'll have that there also. But yeah, hey, thank you for coming on.
Hey,
Really
my
appreciate
pleasure.
Awesome. And honestly, I do want to keep bringing people such as yourself back on. So listen, if you have a wild hair or something you want to just talk about, I'm able to just pop on this thing at any time. So we can get information, content out. Feel free to use me that way,
Okay.
All right. But
Sounds
anyway,
great.
I really appreciate it. But to everybody else, I really appreciate you tuning in. Please take time to subscribe to my channel, hit the like, definitely hit the notification. I'm looking for geosteers, geologists, engineers, anybody who wants to come on the show. Go to thegrizzledgeologist.com, fill out a form, and I'll get back to you. In the meantime, all you crazy geologists, don't go too deep.
Work for it. Don't be crazy. And work for your money.